They say tragedies bring people together. Differences are forgotten, interests are put aside. All the focus is on helping the victims. But there is no such luck in Gaza. The Palestinian leadership is divided. It's Hamas versus the PA, that's the Palestinian Authority, PA. It's an unfortunate but expected story. The entire world is rallying for Gaza. Countries are working overtime to implement a ceasefire. Aid workers are risking their lives, and protesters are marching against Israel. But what is Palestine's leadership doing? Fighting against each other. Instead of using this global attention, they are bickering for power. We're talking about two separate power centers here. Hamas controls Gaza, or at least they used to control Gaza, and the PA, the Palestinian Authority, rules over the West Bank. It is controlled by a party called Fatah, the party founded by Yasser Arafat, the Fatah party. They have very different ideologies, Fatah and Hamas. Hamas is a hardline Islamist group. The PA and its political parties are more secular. They prefer diplomacy over violence. And now these two groups are clashing. The first incident happened in late March. An aid convoy was passing through Rafah into Gaza. 6 PA officials were part of this convoy, but Hamas arrested them. They accuse these men of being spies, of trying to sow division inside Gaza. But the PA has rejected this. They say the officials were simply overseeing aid work, no espionage, no meddling. But talk about priorities here. Israel is sweeping across the Gaza Strip, and what does Hamas target? They're targeting officials from a fellow Palestinian group. The question is why? Both these groups have a history of rivalry. The Hamas emerged in the late 1980s during the first Palestinian uprising, also called the First Intifada. Hamas was not a fan of other Palestinian leaders. They considered them too liberal, too secular, and too soft. So Hamas offered an alternative, a hardline, violent fight for Palestine. This ideology found takers in the 2006 elections. The Fatah won in the West Bank, but Hamas won in Gaza. And this led to a minor civil war. Hamas eventually seized control of the Gaza Strip. Now, my point is quite simple here. Neither side likes the other, and the war has only deepened this hatred. There are questions on aid distribution, questions on reconstruction, questions on Gaza's political future. All of this has put the two sides against each other. The US wants the PA to get involved, to play a major role in post-war Gaza, but Hamas does not like that. Their leaders say, there is no Gaza without us. And what about Israel? What does Benjamin Netanyahu think? Well, he doesn't want Hamas to stay on. After all, his war objective was to destroy Hamas. But he's not a fan of the PA either. And I'll tell you why. Let's assume that Hamas is defeated. Israel eventually leaves Gaza, and the PA fills the political vacuum. What happens then? The PA could become more powerful. It would have complete control over the two Palestinian regions, which would make the PA more formidable. And Netanyahu would not like that. Which brings us to present day. Israel has signaled a climb down recently. First, they opened a border crossing with Gaza. Now they're pulling back soldiers. We do not have the exact numbers yet, but many Israeli soldiers have started leaving southern Gaza. Why is that? Listen to their defense minister's assessment.
Hamas ceased to function as a military organization throughout the Gaza Strip. The troops go out and prepare for their follow-up missions.
So Israel says Hamas has ceased to function as a military organization. It's not clear what that means, but it does put the focus on the future, on what happens after the war. The PA is better placed to make inroads. For starters, they're not designated terrorists. They are a political entity. Countries across the world recognize the Palestinian Authority. Even India does that. In 2018, Prime Minister Modi traveled to the West Bank. He held talks with the PA president. But Hamas is not like that. More than a dozen countries consider them terrorists. So the PA certainly holds an edge. What they need is more Western support. Only the US can force Israel to make concessions at this point. So the PA needs to woo Washington. And we are seeing indications of that. Last week, the Fatah party made a surprising statement. They accused Iran of trying to spread chaos in the West Bank. They promised to crack down on Tehran's meddling. I guess that statement will make Israel and the US happy. But still, a lot needs to be done. The last elections in the West Bank were held in the year 2006. That's almost 18 years ago. An entire generation has grown up without seeing an election, without voting. Same goes for the president, Mahmoud Abbas. He's 88 years old and unpopular. Polls show 88% Palestinians want him to step down. He is one of the oldest world leaders alive. So first, the PA must put its own house in order and then focus on Gaza. A lot will also depend on Israel's military campaign. If Hamas is totally destroyed, the PA's entry will be easy. If Hamas survives, they will fight back. But whatever happens, I will say this: Palestinians deserve better. They need a strong, united and elected leadership. If not, none of this matters. Not the street protests, not the humanitarian aid, not the global support. Right now, the world is mourning with Palestinians. Public opinion is firmly with them. The least these leaders can do is repay that faith.